of owning a cafe, and other heroic deeds by Beware the Tristeville. Chapter 13. Ambitions. By the time he'd wiped down the tables, checked that the quietly chatting group of elderly women who'd started coming by were all right, and replenished his coffee mug, Shouta had realized his mistake. Too late.
What's with the notepads? I thought that you'd nearly finished your homework.
For the quick, frank discussion of his startup ambitions and goals had turned into an ambush! We're hoping it does, She-kun! Dank replied excitedly. Aren't you always the one telling us to be thorough, Aizawa-san? He furthered with a jaunty waggle of his eyebrows. Hoisted by his own petard. Wonderful.
I am.
He admitted, his right brow cocking when the children snickered and looked to their pages dotted with questions. He had to do a double take when his eyes clocked Izuku's ledger. There was a whole interrogation's worth of questions innocently lying across that smooth white paper, wasn't there?
What?
No but so. Dabi helpfully cut in from where he was so cockily stood behind and between Bakugo and Kirishima, his face alight with mischief, whilst he folded his arms imperiously.
Shinsoku needs your help, doesn't he? Yes.
And you're always telling us to be cooperative and work together, right?
Okay. He chuckled, his hands raised in surrender, whilst his lips quirked into a grin before he sighed, his right hand ruffling Hitoshi's wild iris locks when he smiled up at him gratefully. God, how could he say no to that face? Fine, then, he allowed. Just make sure that you write down my answers and give them to him afterwards, all right?
At a flurry of nods and affirmations, it looked very much as though one elementary student in particular was just about ready to pop. First, please! Ichiro called, his little left arm waving madly, whilst his bright, endearing smile, that he was becoming less and less self-conscious about, thank goodness, flashed at him.
Kirishima-kun, we already agreed that you would, Kero.
Itsuyu giggled fondly.
You've organized yourselves pretty well,
he complimented warmly.
Okay, what's the question?
Okay, so, the boy began. He was clearly thrilled that the group had decided that he could start. When are you gonna get a real crab at the cafe? And can we all name it? Blinking. Because logically that had nothing to do with the report that the voice quirk user had to write. Shouta huffed a laugh.
Cats require a lot of care, time, and attention,
he answered, because why not? Seeing the children so fixated on a common goal with Katsuki actually contributing was worth a report in itself, wasn't it?
And unfortunately, to comply with the health and safety policies I have to follow in order to stay open well, it's irrational to have one.
He shrugged, his eyes taking in their little crestfallen faces for the swiftest of moments before,
however,
watching their attention snap back to him. Even Dabi had looked a little dejected. He'd have to do some calculations to progress his business plan's timeline now, wouldn't he? He allowed the slightest of smiles to steal his features.
In the interest of Hitoshi's report under the category of ambition, what is directly next door to this cafe?
It was Flower Shop, wasn't it? It's been closed for a while now. The forest-haired child replied, his head cocking to the side before his eyes widened in understanding. Aizawa-san, do you want to buy that too?
If you decide to veer away from the hero business and into the police, I believe you'd make an excellent detective, Izuku.
He praised with a grin, the other tat's expressions ranging from curious to excited.
Ultimately, so long as this business continues to make a modest profit, I hope the purchase had flourished to knock this wall through,
he explained, his right arm gesturing to the toilets and their housing.
That should up the square footage enough for me to have an actual cat cafe,
he stated with a light shrug, his gaze slanting to the children as they slowly took the information in.
I should be able to get a license for 8, probably 10, and I'll need names for them, won't I? That, and they'll need grooming, feeding, and playing with, so I can depend on all of you to help me with that, right?
3, 2, 1.
Get up!
Oh my gosh! You give me this all the time?
I'm always finding a kitty, but we can't afford one.
You can get on this, Aizawa-san! I'm so excited I could punch something!
chuckling, his gaze looking to Dobby, who was looking at him with a soft, pleased expression, and he knew the teen was a softy deep down. Shouta felt his shoulders relax. Sure, it was a little fanciful, but he'd read numerous studies about how animal therapy could treat all manner of mental health issues and relieve stress. Also, as illogical as it was, he'd always loved cats. He'd always wanted to have at least one. He'd sat numerous feline care courses in preparation to take on that responsibility too. Plus, offering such a venue was profitable. Not that that mattered to him. However, it would matter to the bank when he applied for the loans he'd no doubt need. And he was certain it would benefit the community he was building too. Just looking at the kids simply dreaming of such a thing was enough to solidify the decision in his mind. Katsuki, too, though we hadn't said anything, was looking to one of the cat photos on the wall. A peachy-furred, boisterous, scrappy little tomcat that was roaring at the camera. The resemblance was uncanny. The smallest of smiles pulling at his lips. Getting that boy a cat to look after, to be gentle with and bond to, would do him the world of good, wouldn't it?
So what do you say, Dobby?
He asked over the excitement, his question causing the others to snap their attention to the teen.
My manager, do you think that you and our friends here are up for the responsibility?
Bonking slightly, the 16-year-old showed that ridiculously adorable, illogically cute blush across his high cheekbones, his left hand rubbing at the back of his neck sheepishly.
Sure,
he tried, and then just as he hoped, his lodger was repetitively mobbed by squealing, joyless children, their cries of, "You're the greatest, Tommy!" ringing across the room whilst they hugged at his legs and told him how wonderful he was as they promised to work super hard and not let you down. Damn, he was going to have to ask their parents permission to screenshot some of the eatery CCTV camera footage, wasn't he? After they'd settled down a touch with Tsuyu and Ochako busily drawing ideas of what the cat enclosure could look like, filled with cat towers, toys, scratching posts, and all of the children with him and Dobby stood in the background, covered with cats, the questions resumed. How did you get into cooking? He tried to phrase his answers in a way that was mostly truthful. However, knowing what he did about many of their circumstances, their own troubles and emotional development, he'd softened some of the edges. He knew that he'd had a difficult start in life, sure. He knew that some of them, lovely as they were, might feel distressed on his behalf. It was why he didn't like to talk about himself too often. His life was his burden to carry, no one else's.
When I was just a few years older than you, I was presented with a choice. I could either learn how to cook nice meals for myself and some other children who lived with me, or not.
He replied easily,
and as I began to study how to use different kinds of utensils, implements, and equipment, I found I had a knack for it.
He mused.
Recipes are logical. The application of precise temperatures, timings, and techniques almost always produce the desired result as well.
He continued,
as strange as it sounds, there's a beauty, a reliability in it.
He grinned.
Plus, eating things that taste good is better than things that taste bad, right?
He could tell by their shared looks, slight frowns, and considerate expressions that they wanted to know more. That they weren't quite satisfied by the explanation, their little minds whirl with further questions they were too shy, well-mannered, or nervous to ask. He was glad that they were all so sweet and sensible enough not to pry. He wanted to shield them from any further sadness as much as he could, at least for now. Childhood was fleeting and should by all accounts be enjoyable. He'd not had that luxury. Many of them hadn't either. But this cafe would be their safe space for as long as he could maintain it, and he meant to maintain it for a long time. How come you didn't want a fancy restaurant? I bet you could be like super famous with one of those... Genki cooed, his pen eagerly waiting to run up the answer. He could always rely on that veritable beam of sunshine to brighten the mood, couldn't he?
A fancy restaurant would have kept me away from the people I wanted to serve,
he offered mildly.
Plus, to manage something so big, expensive, and... what did you call it, Dobby? Snooty? Yeah, that's not my style.
He chuckled.
I'd much rather be here with all of you than dealing with pushy adults who complain about everything and demand to have such irrational things like edible gold on everything.
He furthered lightly, his tone genuine and light as he laughed. His captive audience, too, giggled along with him before, to his surprise, it was Katsuki Mitski, who stood from his chair, ran to the table and wrapped slight arms around his leg, his stern little face looking up at him seriously.
I'm glad you didn't open a stupid place like that, he said quietly before pulling away. My mom's here, he added, his backpack slung across his shoulders. Aggie, you got what I want.
Oh, yeah! The raven-haired chap grinned, his satchel snagged, as they all looked to the cafe door where Mitski was
Animatedly ranting into her cell phone outside.
Burgers! Good luck with your report, Toshi! He added while scampering around the seated children to squeeze his up the leg. I'm real happy too, Aizawa-san. This place is almost as awesome as you are, and I can't wait to meet all the kids you're gonna have too. See you tomorrow! He chirped before bashing after his friend to further punish grandma ladies, leaving his lips before he scooted outside. Waving at them as they left, his head nodding at the oldest Bakugo as she smiled at him and waved back, Shouta felt that soothing warmth return to his chest once more. It was surprising, really, how much people could change in just a few weeks, wasn't it? What? Why is helping people so important to you? I mean, you're so kind and smart and strong, Izuku asked, a thick line clearly drawn under this question. You could go out there and be, well, anything, so... He tried, their eyes locking as Dabi walked past the top, a hand ruffling his wavy green hair as he went. It was 1900, and the university students were approaching, with a few middle school students deflated after late evening cram sessions as exam season reared its ugly head. And he, without a word, was approaching the service bar to serve them. Such a good kid. And speaking of good kids, well, he could only hope that his truth was good enough for them.
When I started middle school,
He began.
I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be.
He continued as he slipped into the chair that Kirishima had previously occupied, the quirkless child leaning into his left side whilst Hitoshi moved into Bakugo's seat, his writing pad brimming with notes as he leaned into his right. Not all of said jottings were to do with the report either.
That because of my circumstances, some mean older boys decided to train with me.
He hinted.
I was a lot smaller and weaker than them, and because of my circumstances, I knew that the only person I could rely on was myself.
He admitted.
However, as I grew stronger, got braver, and showed them that I wasn't someone they could push around, I stood over them, looked down, and saw something in their eyes that frightened me more than their punches and kicks ever could.
He said.
They were afraid of me, and the thought of that nearly made me sick.
He sighed.
I'd spent so much time trying to prove them wrong and trying to prove myself that I was on the verge of becoming someone who my parents wouldn't have recognized.
He added.
Worse still, I'd almost forgotten some of the most important people to me. The younger boys who I lived with, who were having similar problems that I'd overlooked, who were even more scared and lonely than I was.
He huffed, his right hand rubbing the back of his neck.
That's when I came to what some people might call an epiphany.
He chuckled.
I realized that the greatest strength I could have wasn't anything physical or related to my quirk, no. It was kindness, understanding, and resilience.
He stated firmly, the children hanging off of his every word.
So, as difficult as it was for me at first, I apologized to the older boys who tormented me. Eventually. And then I started to think about what I could do to stop boys like that from existing in the first place.
He mused.
Because regardless of how some people may look, act, or seem, no one is born bad. No one just wakes up one morning and decides that the only way they'll feel good is by making other people feel worse.
He reasoned.
But, being rational, I knew that helping people to reach the same logical conclusion I did wouldn't be quick, easy, or doable on a large scale right away.
He told them.
That's why I started with the children who I now proudly call my little brothers. That's why I preach self-defense and try my best to listen and not make snap judgments about those I mean.
He breathed, his smile softening.
And we're better to listen to people than in a cute, friendly place filled with good food, nice things to drink, and resources to help them, man.
He wasn't sure what had possessed him to agree to several more team-ups. Probably the same stupid thing that had led him to offer on the first time around. But, as 2100 rolled around, "I'll burn you, bitch!" was back online. He should have been glad. That was ridiculous. He didn't need to play with someone. He was perfectly happy by himself. Thanks. I'll burn you, bitch.
Hey.
And yet, death touch.
You finish work?
As he snagged his wireless keyboard for better typing, he couldn't help the easing of his shoulders. I'll burn you, bish.
Cat that has forced another break on me. He's a robot, I swear.
His enjoyment of their mundane conversations. Death touch.
Cat Dad.
The window these words carved into a life other than his own. I'll burn you, bitch.
Yeah, you promised us Smalls a cat cafe.
He wrote a cat emoji and excited face quickly followed me. I liked the scene from what the other teen had said. A good one. And they were the same age, if he wasn't in fact some creeper skulking around and trying to trick him. Nothing they'd said to each other had led him to believe that the other was lying, and well, since they kept meeting up, the guy probably felt the same way about him. Death touch.
Yeah, that's so fucking cute, man.
He admitted.
I'll have to go back when it's done and let my ass over you. Having to empty the litter boxes.
He replied a poop emoji and laughing, crying face, out of a good measure. What would it be like to have some random stranger take you in and actually look after you? Not that he wasn't grateful to Sensei. Not that he disagreed with what they were planning. Not that he didn't want to see the fake, disgusting world of heroes eradicated. I'll burn you, bitch.
Why wait until later?
But...
Huh?
He blinked, his disbelief filling the emptiness of his room. Wait, was he being invited over? Death touch.
You trying to lure me somewhere, perv?
I'll burn you, bitch.
It's a cafe, not a fetish dungeon.
Laugh snorting, his grin swiftly returning. He shook his head whilst the mirth he'd felt died down. Death touch.
My quirk fucked me over.
He admitted.
I look like a horror B-movie reject.
He added because, well, why not? He knew he looked awful and he was miles past caring. However, that didn't mean that he wanted to be seen by people. It didn't mean that he liked being stared at. And besides, Sensei wouldn't like him wandering around and being noticed. If he lashed out and killed someone, then without Kirogiri shadowing him, he'd be screwed, wouldn't he? Sensei wouldn't be pleased if he had to yank him out of a prison, would he? If he didn't just leave him there to rot, he was to be his heir. However, he knew that the man, ancient, powerful, a true kingpin of crime, had other pawns that could step up to take his place. He knew theoretically that he was expendable. Everything was. I'll burn you, bitch.
My face... Now, most of my body is pretty fucked, too.
Blinking his head cocky to the side, Thelma frowned. I'll burn you, bitch.
Cat Dad doesn't care about such things. And neither do the customers. It's weird, but I've never felt more not fucked, unfucked than when I'm here.
The other typed, his grin returning.
Come, don't come, whatever.
His, could he say friend? Video game associate? Fellow quest runner typed. I'll burn you, bitch.
This is the address.
Humming thoughtfully, he fed the zip code into a search engine and felt his eyebrows rise. Just as the other had said, this Noroneko Cafe was in a pretty shady part of town. A shady part of town where someone who looked like him wouldn't necessarily be noticed. Death touch.
You work it tomorrow?
I'll burn you, bitch.
Yeah, Cat Dad keeps telling me to take 2 days off, but fuck it, you know? Got nothing better to do and the sun makes me itch.
Yeah, you knew that, babe. Death touch.
When should I come by?
I'll burn you, bitch.
Depends. It's quiet between 10 and 12 and 19 and 22.
He wrote.
Middle schoolers and MU students come in to work and shit. We'd have the gaming area to ourselves.
We. Huh. Death touch.
If we're doing this, names?
I'll burn you, bitch.
Dobby.
Death touch.
Tobra.
He replied, because using Sensei's name wasn't a good idea, was it? A little grin prickling his lips as he typed,
What kind of name is Dobby?
I'll burn you, bitch.
The kind of name that'll kick your ass around level 77, bitch.